Start the morning right with a cup of Vinyl Tap. Nothing beats the refreshing taste of a hot, warm mug of Vinyl Tap. Enjoy your podcast in liquid form today. Vinyl Tap. Enjoy responsibly.
Welcome back to Vinyl Tap. I'm Jason.
This is Jason.
And he was Jason.
Indeed I am. The album that we have just listened to is From Elsewhere by Pseudo Hive. They are a Melbourne band that formed in 2017. Anyone
First
like
thing
to
I
begin?
kind of want to open up with is, are these guys, so have you seen them live?
Yes. So the way that I came across this band was an old housemate of Habibi's and mine, Jake. We went to a gig. Uh-huh. Yes, we went to a gig. Surprising.
Wow.
And we didn't go there to see Pseudo Hive play. They were just one of the acts on the bill. And we both just went, wow, they're phenomenal. We loved the sound they had. They were like super tight performers. And this was only like a couple of months after they'd kind of started performing as far as we're aware. And I've just followed them since. And that's why this is the album I chose. I
Very
just
tight,
love their music.
also.
Yeah.
Very tight.
And how many members did you say?
5. It's a 5 piece.
Okay. I thought I heard earlier that you said 2, and I was like,
No.
no fucking way.
don't think
Okay.
I said how many. It's a 5-piece band.
Yeah,
that
okay,
makes me a lot less insecure.
So there's like 2 guitars, a bassist, a drummer, and actually maybe there was 3 guitars.
3 guitars?
Yeah,
Is there a
maybe, I
synth
don't know.
player
That
as
wouldn't
well?
surprise
Maybe it's a synth player. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
There's probably also
I
the
think there was
vocalist, I'm
3
assuming.
guitars from memory, and 1 was a guitar synth player. I could be wrong.
Right.
Do not quote me on those things.
I will quote you on both of those
Wonderful.
things.
Make sure you use quotation marks. So,
Yes.
I'd like to let the baby begin because I know he has thoughts.
Do I have thoughts? I do have thoughts.
Looks like you do.
I've got quite a few thoughts. Let's go. It kind of felt like a homage. The opening of this album was like a homage to the 80s. There was like, the best way that I can put it is that it sounded like retro sci-fi.
Yeah, it's
like-
similar to my notes. They've got like literally 80s synth sound, spaceship sorts of noises.
Yeah.
So the way that I would say with this album, it's kind of not a thematic album, but has a general kind of space theme,
Absolutely,
atmosphere.
absolutely. The first track, Cygnus, really does lift you off into space. The first note
Almost
I wrote for
literally.
it was, it sounds like Alien with a V-neck. And now, Alien was released in 1970, but like the aesthetic of it is what would come to be known as the 80s sci-fi kind of
Yes.
thing, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it sounds like for me as well, going back to that 80s sound, kind of original, quote unquote, heavy metal, which I know is a little bit before the 80s, but it was like slower, big, fat, heavy tones. It wasn't 100 miles an hour, very like Sabbath-like.
Very melodic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of metal is
Heavy,
melodic,
dirgy.
but the riffs themselves were melodic
Yes.
as opposed to just throwing notes at you.
My overarching thought, and I know you're so excited to hear what I thought. This album didn't have a single chord.
Ooh,
Everything was just root notes.
Yes.
wow.
Yeah. Oh, sometimes the vocals, which like there are barely any vocals in the album. Great decision, I love it.
Ooh, I've got something
yeah,
I wanna
we'll
say
talk about
that,
it later. And the guitar solos would sometimes like have a third or a fifth.
Yeah.
Other than that, root notes. There are no triads in this album.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Everything. If you hear harmony, it's because of like movement.
Overtones.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say that I think one of the strongest things for the band is, I don't really have a term, but I want to say their sliding transitions. It's not really like a hard cut between one section and the next, unless they intend it to be. And the movement between the sections is kind of, there's an instrument coming in and another dropping out, and then all of a sudden you're in this new section. With the exception of when they intentionally drop everything out or have everything come in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so the first track lifted me off the ground and took me into space, and by the end of the album, I'd seen the solar system destroyed. Like, you know,
Well, I mean, it does make, like, they've got, Red Earth, Highway to the Purple Sky, there's a lot of, like, space kind of...
halfway through, I decided that this is best categorized as space funk grunge metal. And that was during Desert God, where it had that the bass line was like kind of groovy.
Desert God is my main note, and it's literally the biggest thing I've written on the whole page, is that it's like Aussie feel. Like Iron Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
A lot of, on that kind of note of there's no there's not a single triad. I think the way that they do contrasts was super duper cool because like if there's, I mean, what vocals there were, whenever they happened, it was just the bass playing, and then to make the sound really, or like it was just one instrument kind of accompanying it, and then they would have like the contrast made by doubling up instruments playing a riff.
Yeah,
and suddenly
yeah.
the sound would go kind of sparse to like fat.
So thick.
So seriously,
Yeah. So instead of like a melodic or harmonic contrast, it's textural and
Textural,
sonic.
which
Yeah,
is
that's
obviously why
Yeah.
You like
I
it
love
so
it
much.
so much.
Mm-hmm.
On the vocals, it's kind of a bit of a mixed bag in this in terms of the way that it sits.
Mm.
There's like, I think 2 songs where the vocal sits in front like it is a lead
Where it, like,
line.
actually is
the lead, and there
vocals in
are
a
other
normal
2
song.
where the vocals are more like textural. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
Weeping
yeah.
Woman is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of sits really low in the mix, and the guitar lines are more prominent and kind of more of the focus.
Yeah, it's like it's a featural kind of thing rather than the focus.
yeah.
So, what did you think of? I don't really have a better word for it, but there's like the classic metal like minor mode, where it's kind of it's
Okay.
almost like a bit easterny feel or
Right,
or
so
something
this
like
is
that.
the Phrygian harmonic scale.
that
We've
what
got
it
a
is?
flat 2
Okay.
and a sharp 3.
Yeah, because
this
that
came
is
up all the time.
all the time. It's
Yeah.
just buried in everything. I just kept on writing like metal minor mode.
Yeah, that's
the
what
best
that
that
is.
I've got.
So it's kind of got that grungy feel from the flat 2, dun, dun, you
Yeah.
know, which, you know, thanks to Dvorak. But there's also a lot of other really interesting kind of church mode shit going on.
Yeah.
Because they had sharp 6s in a minor key, so it's like Dorian.
Yes.
And
yeah.
it's like a grungy Dorian because they have the flat 2 as well.
yeah.
It's fucked. And then in the last track, Highway to the Purple Sky, they were playing around with a Mixolydian mode. They had D down to C, up to D down to C, and it was just floating between those 2 chords. That track actually made me think Brain Damage, Pink Floyd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from that bass, whatever.
I want to
yeah.
re-listen to that with that in mind.
Yeah, and it had like shimmering guitar over the top of it, like Dave Gilmour did. Actually, that whole track, I was thinking that's Dave Gilmour.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of on the guitar like lines and the guitar solos. Their solos are really good at following the harmony underneath.
Yeah.
They're not doing things that sound cool. It's like
They're not flashy,
No,
not
and
at
it's
all.
following the like contour of what's happening underneath it in a really nice way that it feels cohesive and part of
Yeah.
it.
What I really liked though was that maybe not flashy melodically or flashy harmonically, but they're like whenever they were doing their turns or you know whatever you want to call it, they would often resolve their melodic lines like on an offbeat. So and then it would just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
so they're not playing like a sick
a
line and they
resolution doesn't sound like a resolution,
go.
yeah.
It was like they would turn and then the melodic line has resolved in the offbeat and then it just keeps flowing. Or then
Yeah.
like it'll like the
And that's basically a perpetual motion machine.
literally
Yeah.
or they'll finish a line and then like the song like will it'll reach back to 1 or something and it so fat.
Yeah,
So good.
again, one of the things that I think is like a really big strength of the album is the way that they use texture to like have a really thick sound. They kind of drop it down and strip it back to 1 or 2 things, and then you get a really big emphasis when everything comes back in, and it does just feel fat and thick.
Yeah.
And you get that impact a second or third time in the song, and it's not, with other rock songs or prog or metal, however you want to classify it, where you have a few things dropping out and something's just continually going on.
Yeah.
They like alternate. They use different things dropping out. It's not just dropping out the same things all the time and keeping one
Yeah.
thing going.
Yeah.
There were 2 moments in the album where the band basically just said, "Fuck you, tempo." Did you notice those?
The
Where-
one where they did the like halftime at the end of
Yeah.
the song, and
Like out of nowhere, and it was perfect.
I can't remember the other one, but I
And
do
there was
have
one
it
where it just
here.
like sped up.
There's
like-
one in Red Earth, and I
Yes.
literally wrote a huge bit about it, where basically the drums did a fill, and initially it sounds like it's just a sick drum fill, but actually the drums just went into double time.
Yeah.
And then everybody
Joined
followed
in.
it, and so by the end of the fill, the whole thing was just now in double time, and it was just like, hang on, how the fuck are we here? And
What
I was just
happened
like,
there? Yeah.
it's super cool, super tight.
I can't remember. I'm trying to look at which one's got the halftime at the end. But yeah, I think change of tempo is something that doesn't happen enough in music either. So it's cool. It happens twice.
That is cool. You know what doesn't change across the album much at all? Key.
No.
No.
I've written down the tonality of each track on the album. We've got G. What was that one? D. So D, then back to G. This one's don't look the wizard in the eye. G sharp.
Oh.
And then we're back to D for Highway to the Purple Sky.
Keeping in mind, I'm
really-
not confident on this. I think they do use open tunings for this kind of stuff and like drop tunings on the guitar.
Yeah,
Which should make sense.
especially with the D minor, absolutely.
Which limits the key. Well, it doesn't, but it does because you've got to have those, basically.
I don't think it's lacking any musical skill at all. It's definitely an intentional decision to have all of these songs in the similar key, or they just like wrote them like that. But it works for me in that it just ties it together as one cohesive unit instead of this song's going to be in E flat for no reason
Right.
and just throw it in
GG.
On the album as a cohesive unit.
G D G.
That general space theme and the lyrics that they do have in the imagery match up well with the album art. And they do match up well with it's like the names of the songs as well.
Yeah. It's definitely very... this is very thematic, actually. Just in general, like the whole... I don't know. I feel like they're killing it with their sci-fi kind of alien
Buzz and
insect
groove and-
invasion
It
feel.
totally sells it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no avoiding it. It takes you to space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I feel like the album gets weaker as it goes on.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like the last two songs...
They're very lengthy, aren't they?
They're lengthy. I feel...
I do have a note here. In general, the songs get longer the further
That's
the album
true,
goes,
yeah. And
with the exception of Weeping Woman, which is...
it's not necessarily a bad thing, but like, Don't Look the Wizard in the Eye, I think it sort of just sat on... Oh, actually, I've got a couple of things I want to say about this. It did sit on the same kind of riff, and it just jammed on it for, I think, just a bit too long before it transitioned. But, that said, the flange on the drums when that
Oh, that
song,
was crazy.
super
How do you
cool.
even think of doing that?
Okay, so
That's so crazy.
the only other time that I've heard that is from one of the early '80s punk bands, and it's on a demo record that they made, and the song is like, I don't know, it's pretty it's similar to this where there's no like chords or anything. It's just like
it's just
they play
drums.
arpeggios, and then they put a fucking flange on the drums and just kick it. And it sounded exactly like that, and it's so cool.
You're gonna hate me because the one time that I've heard that before is on a Blink-182 song,
Yeah?
where they put a flanger on the drums. Yeah,
What?
yeah, I'm feeling this. At the very opening of it, it's just for a little bit at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've actively paid attention to what it is
Oh,
until right now.
It's a really cool effect, to be honest. I think it's sort of, I don't know, it's hard to utilize because
oh
the
yeah.
particular song that I'm thinking of, it sounds like it's a terrible effect. It sounds shit.
It sounds so cool here though.
Yeah, and this one works really, really well. But I don't know, the last two songs, I think they just jam
A little bit too long.
a bit too long
Yeah,
without kind of
Would
changing
you,
things.
would you have been okay, can I posit this, if it had been one of them and not both of them? Would you have been more okay with it?
Yeah, probably. I think the Highway to the... What is it? Highway to the Purple Sky?
Which, on that very quickly, just because I love intertextuality and references, do we think it's just there because it's a cool name, or is it a nod to Prince or a nod to Hendrix at all?
I was trying to think about that.
Yeah.
Maybe a nod to Hendrix, maybe.
That's what I thought.
With
Purple
that
haze,
solo,
Purple
yeah.
sky.
Yeah.
The color purple is in the name.
Yes.
Yeah, you have a point there, Jason.
Anyway, back to the point you're making.
About the length.
So Highway to the Purple Sky, I think... I guess that would have been okay if it was just a one-off, but I think because previous song had already sort of jammed for quite a while, and also Protect the Swarm had sort of started to do it a little bit.
Like I said, it grows in length the further you get into the album. Based on the track times. Would you have been more okay with it as well if they had been in a different order? Like, obviously, bands pick the order they put the songs in for a reason, but if there had been a song early on that was longer and then one later on that was longer, you'd had a bit of a break
I really
from it.
enjoyed the order of the songs.
Same.
I do.
thought
Yeah.
I thought that Highway to the Purple Sky was a great way to finish the album.
Yes.
Yep.
But then it went back to the Iron Man bit.
Oh, you're talking about, because I had here that really slow section
Yeah,
with the
the-
drums.
the-
I thought was an outro.
Yes.
And then it went back to the main
I
riff.
thought that
Yeah,
that would
I
have been
agree.
the perfect way to end this album. Like, it's taking you up to space, it's destroyed the solar system, it lays you back down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where it should end. But, like, I'm not here to prescribe, but I just think,
But here you are prescribing.
yes, cut the end of that track.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's still good to listen to. If I may use a word that I'll never be able to use again, the solo in Desert God
Yes.
is heterophonic in texture.
Okay.
what does that mean?
Even,
That means-
even I'm going to need context
So,
on that.
Heterophonic texture is when a soloing instrument basically copies the accompaniment with embellishments.
So what I
it's
was
slightly
saying, how
different.
the melody, the lead line was following what the harmony does. Is that what I was talking
Yeah,
about?
well, it's not really harmony, is it?
It's just a bass line.
Kind of, yeah.
But it's the same.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
It's embellishing what's already there, and that's heterophonic, and that's the only time I'll ever get to say that. So thank you, Pseudo Mind Hive.
Check
Also,
bucket
Protect
list.
the Swarm.
Yep.
The entire first half of the song doesn't have a sixth scale degree or a third scale degree. And that's mind-blowing to me. That whole period of time, also barely any twos at all.
Why is that mind-blowing?
I don't know if it's a conscious decision to not play those scale degrees, or if that's just
How it
what
feels to
happened
them?
because they wanted to create a certain mood. But it's incredible that it panned out that way. And it
Works.
drove me insane. And then you actually saw me do it when we were
Yeah.
listening. I heard it was in G, so an E natural during the first solo. I was like, oh, thank fuck. I finally know where we are.
You might be able to help me out with this. I've got Tim will explain that dope chord progression.
Which one?
I don't know. It's early
What
on,
song?
and I needed you to
in
explain
Protect
it.
the Swarm.
In Protect the Swarm.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Off screen if you want.
Because that was particularly nice. That whole Protect the Swarm, like,
I'm pretty sure it was 1371 in G.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'll get back
yeah.
to you on that.
really, really, really nice, that song, actually. Just some more final notes as an overall thing. Their use of effects is really good. Like, really, really nice. They had, just picking out some ones that really stuck out to me. Highway to the Purple Sky. It began with like a really nice rotary effect on the guitar, and it sat back in the mix as well. So it was just kind of present and like really, really nice. It created just a sick effect, kind of a floaty space effect. But also just their kind of weird
Fuzz sound.
Fuzz sounds,
I think
yeah.
the way that they
Fuzzy
describe
metal.
it is like fuzz and groove are kind of their big things. That
Fuzzy, groovy metal.
like I personally would still kind of call them prog because they kind of change between sections. Like they don't go wildly into different genres, but it's still like progressive.
Yes.
And then like it's almost like a very minimal prog, but like they say groove and fuzz. is
Okay,
their
now
big
that you've
thing.
said that, I'm going to mention an influence that I think might be there. It probably isn't, but neither of you have mentioned, and that's Rush.
I did have
With
that
song titles
thought.
like Cygnus, Don't Look the Wizard in the Eye, and Highway to the Purple Sky, I can only think Rush.
I had that thought in my head, but I
And
wasn't
the way
like,
the album opened to was very rushy.
sure if it was like
Yeah.
strong
you-
enough to mention.
Then you
but
listen
here
to
it
it.
is.
The bass is very strong. The drums are very active, and it kind of falls apart from there. It's not that rushy, but
No,
I just thought
but
I'd mention
there
it. Now
could
that you
be
compared it to
elements.
prog, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean because it's hard to say that it's anything else realistically.
It might be influenced though.
Yeah.
Like has like Rush flavors to it, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll bring everything back to Rush if you let me. So
I'm sure you will. Yeah, I obviously have a personal bias, being a guitarist, having seen them live, being the one who brought the album to the table. And yeah, I just love it because of the different textures.
what
And
guitarists do you hear in this album?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I said earlier I heard in the last track Gilmore.
Yeah. I don't know if I explicitly agree with that because when I think Gilmore, I think bends, like lots and lots
Right.
of
There is a
string
fair bit of
bends.
them.
Not on the
not so
same
many.
degree, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, it had that same face melty feeling as Comfortably Numb.
But I
is
think
what I was
that's
getting.
more to do with
It's a genre thing, not explicitly Gilmore.
the accompaniment plus
Yeah.
the fact that it was like a wailing guitar solo, so that's just kind of that.
That vibe.
Wow.
You may think I'm crazy. I heard some Flea in the bass.
I
Like
Can't say one way or the other
If
on
you
that.
said that, like, they're into groove,
yeah,
That's
that
what they're
would make
about,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
especially it was Red Earth, where I heard it sounded like an RHCP quote. I can't quite remember it, but I was like, "Oh, that sounds like Suck My Kiss."
Oh, okay.
I can't remember it, but I wrote it down, so it must be true.
I think guitarist wise, I can't remember the names of the guitarists, but because you've got the multiple guitars doing things
You get a lot of
rhythmically the
different
same,
instruments, yeah.
and they're doing it's very Thin Lizzy, and also
Oh,
like
yeah.
Metallica do that a bit,
Yeah.
where they've got two guitarists doing the same rhythmic thing but different notes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, how much of that is just metal tropes?
but yeah, that's what I mean. That's why it's hard.
know?
That's why I think I find it hard because
Metal is metal. Yeah.
Metal
Yeah.
is metal. I mean, I definitely think that they've got. They quote, but it's an individual sound. I would
Yeah.
say that,
Yeah.
like, I
well, that's what
necessarily-
You'll
when I
never
yeah.
say they ripped off Black
no,
Sabbath.
when I heard them live, I was just like, I haven't heard anything.
It's
like
very
this.
unique.
It's very
Yeah.
itself.
Space metal.
Sure.
More, please.
more please.
Yes. Well, they actually. We'll give them a plug, seeing as we're talking about them. Released an album.
This episode
last
is brought
year.
to you by plugs.
Yes. Good to stop water in the bath. Yes. They released an album last year and are touring this year. Apparently, I think.
You should listen to them. We'll see you there.